What would you do if the person you rescued in a storm turned out to be running from the most dangerous man in the city? Daniel Brooks thought he was just helping a stranger until she walked into his life and changed everything. A single father, a runaway bride, and a man who never forgives. This is their story. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Daniel Brooks hadn't planned on stopping. The windshield wipers were barely keeping up with the sleet, and his knuckles were white against the steering wheel. He was exhausted, bone-tired in the way that comes from holding everything together when it feels like the seams are splitting. The parent-teacher conference had been a disaster. Mrs. Henderson had used words like withdrawn and concerning and recommend counseling, and Daniel had nodded through all of it, swallowing the guilt that came with knowing she was right. Lily hadn't been the same since her mother died. Neither had he. The road ahead was dark, the kind of dark that swallows headlights whole. Daniel was thinking about tomorrow's shift at the warehouse, about the electricity bill he'd forgotten to pay, about whether Lily had eaten the dinner he'd left in the microwave when he saw her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a figure in white, walking along the shoulder of the road like a ghost bleeding into the storm. He slowed instinctively, his brain trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The figure didn't stop, didn't look up, just kept walking with a kind of dazed determination that made his chest tighten. Daniel pulled over. He sat there for a moment, engine idling, telling himself this was a bad idea. You didn't pick up strangers, not anymore, not in this world. But something about the way she moved, small steps, shoulders hunched against the cold, pulled at something deep inside him, something he hadn't listened to in a long time. He rolled down the window. "Hey, you okay?" She stopped, turned slowly, like she wasn't sure the voice was real, and when the headlights caught her face, Daniel's breath hitched. She was young, late 20s maybe. Her dress, a white dress he realized with a jolt, was torn at the hem and streaked with dirt. Her dark hair hung in wet tangles around her face, and her eyes, wide and dark, stared at him with the kind of exhaustion that came from running a long time. "Are you hurt?" he called. She didn't answer right away, just looked at him, then at the car, then back down the empty road behind her, like she was weighing something. "I don't know," she said finally. Her voice was soft, hoarse. "Maybe." Daniel didn't think. He pushed open the passenger door. "Get in." She hesitated. He could see it, the war happening behind her eyes. Trust versus survival. But then the wind picked up, hard enough to make her stagger, and she made her choice. She crossed the distance quickly, slipping into the seat and pulling the door shut behind her. The silence in the car was heavy. Daniel turned the heat up, watching as she wrapped her arms around herself and stared straight ahead. Up close, he could see she was shaking. Not from the cold, he thought, from something worse. "Where are you headed?" he asked gently. "I don't know." "Okay. Where are you coming from?" She closed her eyes. "Somewhere I can't go back to." Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. He should have asked more questions, should have insisted she call someone. But there was something in her voice, something raw and real, that told him she didn't have anyone to call. "All right," he said quietly. "You don't have to tell me anything, but you need to get warm, and I've got a couch, no strings. You can leave whenever you want." She turned to look at him then, really look at him, like she was trying to figure out what kind of person he was, what he wanted from her. "Why?" she asked. Daniel thought about Lily, about the night she couldn't sleep, the way she flinched at loud noises, the careful distance she kept from the world, about how many people had walked past her pain without stopping. "Because someone should," he said. The woman studied him for another long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. They drove in silence. Daniel kept stealing glances at her, trying to piece together a story that made sense. A wedding dress. Torn and muddy. No shoes. He noticed that now, her bare feet pale against the floor mat. No purse. No phone. Just her. "What's your name?" he asked as they turned onto his street. "Mia," she said. "Mia Carter." Daniel Brooks. He pulled into the driveway of a modest two-story house, the porch light casting a weak glow over peeling paint and a lawn that needed mowing. "This is it. Not much, but it's warm." Mia didn't move right away. She stared at the house like it was a question she didn't know how to answer. You coming? Daniel asked. She nodded and opened the door. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and laundry detergent. It was cluttered in the way homes are when people actually live in them. Shoes by the door, mail on the counter, a jacket draped over a chair. Daniel led Mia into the living room and gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll get you something dry to wear. He disappeared upstairs, leaving Mia alone. She sank onto the couch, her hands trembling in her lap. The warmth of the house was almost painful after the cold, and she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back hard. She couldn't afford to break down. Not yet. The living room was small, but lived in. Photos lined the mantel. A dark-haired woman with a bright smile, holding a baby. The same woman, older, with a little girl on her lap. More recent ones showed just Daniel and the girl. Their smiles a little forced, a little tired. Mia's chest ached looking at them. Daniel returned with a sweatshirt and a pair of sweatpants. These were my wife's, he said quietly. They'll be big, but they're clean. Mia took them, her fingers brushing his for just a second. Thank you. Bathroom's down the hall. Take your time. When she was gone, Daniel stood in the middle of his living room, wondering what the hell he'd just done. He didn't know this woman, didn't know what she was running from, but he knew fear when he saw it. And he knew what it was like to feel alone. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, her small frame silhouetted against the hallway light. She was 11, all knobby knees and wary eyes, clutching a stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 3. Dad? Yeah, Lilybug. Go back to bed. Who's here? Daniel hesitated. Just someone who needed help. It's okay. Lily didn't move. She'd always been too smart for her own good, too aware. Is she staying? Just for tonight. Lily nodded slowly and turned to go, but she paused at her door, looking back. Dad? Yeah? Is she safe? Daniel's throat tightened. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but we'll figure it out. Lily disappeared into her room, and Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. When Mia emerged from the bathroom, she looked smaller somehow. The oversized clothes swallowed her frame, and her wet hair was pushed back from her face. She stood in the doorway, uncertain. Feel better? Daniel asked. A little. She paused. I should go. Where? She didn't have an answer. Look, Daniel said, softer now. It's late. You're exhausted. Just stay tonight. In the morning, if you want to leave, I'll drive you wherever you need to go. No questions asked. Mia looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. Okay. Daniel made up the couch with blankets and a pillow, and Mia settled in, curling into herself like she was trying to disappear. He lingered in the doorway, feeling the weight of the silence. Mia? Yeah? You're safe here. I promise. She didn't respond, but he saw her shoulders relax, just a fraction. Daniel went upstairs, but he didn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Somewhere below, Mia was doing the same. 2 strangers, wide awake in the dark, each carrying something too heavy to name. What? The next morning, Daniel woke to the smell of coffee. He stumbled downstairs, half asleep, and froze. Mia was in the kitchen. She'd found the coffee maker, and 2 mugs sat steaming on the counter. She looked up when he entered, her expression guarded. I hope that's okay, she said. Yeah, of course. Daniel rubbed his eyes. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She handed him a mug. I'm not good at sitting still. They stood there, sipping coffee in the kind of awkward silence that fills spaces where words should be. Daniel wanted to ask, needed to ask, but he didn't know where to start. Listen, Mia said finally. I appreciate what you did last night, really, but I should probably get going. Going where? I'll figure something out. Do you have money? A phone? Anywhere to stay? Mia looked away. I'll manage. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Daniel set his mug down. Look, I'm not trying to pry, but you walked out of a wedding in a storm with nothing. That's not nothing. That's desperation. Mia's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me. You're right, I don't, but I know what it looks like when someone's running, and I know what happens to people who run with nowhere to go. So what? You're just going to let some stranger crash on your couch indefinitely? If that's what it takes. Mia stared at him, something shifting in her eyes. Why would you do that? Because I know what it's like to need help and not know how to ask for it. The words hung between them. Mia opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked down at her coffee, her hands trembling slightly. I walked out on my wedding, she said quietly, 4 days ago. I was supposed to marry this man, this very important, very powerful man, and I just couldn't. Did he hurt you? Not the way you mean. Mia's voice was barely above a whisper. But yes, in other ways. Daniel waited, giving her space. I've known him since I was a kid, she continued. My parents died when I was 16, car accident. His family took me in. They were generous, gave me everything, a home, an education, stability. And when I turned 18, Adrian, that's his name, Adrian decided we were going to get married. Not asked. Decided. And you went along with it. What choice did I have? Mia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. They controlled everything, where I went to school, what I studied, who I talked to. By the time I realized I was trapped, I'd been trapped for years. So you ran. So I ran. She let out a shaky laugh. I stood there in that dress, in front of 300 people, and I just walked out. Got in a cab. Told the driver to go. Didn't matter where. I ended up at some rest stop in the middle of nowhere, and when I couldn't pay, the driver kicked me out. I've been walking since. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. Does he know where you are? Not yet. But he will. Adrian always gets what he wants. Not this time. Mia looked at him, something desperate in her expression. You don't understand. He's not just some guy. He owns half this city. Politicians, judges, business owners, they all answer to him. If he wants me back, he'll find a way. Then we'll deal with it when it happens. Why? Mia's voice cracked. Why do you even care? Daniel thought about how to answer that. About Sarah, and the year of chemo that didn't work, and the funeral where Lily hadn't cried once. About the mornings he woke up and forgot, just for a second, that his wife was gone. About the nights Lily screamed herself awake from nightmares he couldn't fix. Because someone should, he said simply. Before Mia could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess. She stopped when she saw Mia, her eyes going wide. Morning, Bug, Daniel said. This is Mia. She's staying with us for a bit. Lily didn't say anything, just stared. Mia crouched down, meeting Lily's eyes. Hi, Lily. I'm Mia. I like your rabbit. Lily clutched the stuffed animal tighter. His name is Mr. Fluff. That's a good name. Lily studied her, head tilted. Why were you outside in the rain? Lily, Daniel started. It's okay, Mia interrupted. She looked at Lily, something shifting in her expression. I was running away from something. From what? From something that wasn't good for me. Lily considered this. Did it hurt you? Mia's breath caught. Yeah, it did. My mom died, Lily said, matter of fact, in the way only kids can be. Dad says it wasn't anyone's fault, but it still hurts. Daniel felt his chest crack open. He opened his mouth, but Mia spoke first. I'm sorry, she said, and her voice was thick. That's really hard. Lily nodded. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and took Mia's hand. You can stay as long as you want, she said. Dad helps people. He's good at it. Mia looked up at Daniel, her eyes bright with unshed tears. He saw the question there, the fragile hope. Yeah, Daniel said quietly. You can stay. Over the next few days, a strange rhythm settled over the house. Daniel went to work at the warehouse, hauling boxes and trying not to think about the woman sleeping on his couch. Lily went to school, quieter than usual, but with something new in her eyes. Curiosity, maybe. And Mia stayed in the house, moving through the rooms like a ghost, learning to be solid again. She helped where she could, washing dishes, folding laundry, making coffee in the mornings. Small things, but they mattered. Daniel would come home to find dinner waiting, nothing fancy, spaghetti or grilled cheese, but hot and ready. He'd find Lily's homework organized on the table, her backpack packed for the next day. You don't have to do all this, he said one evening, watching Mia wipe down the kitchen counter. I know, but I want to. It's the least I can do. You're not a maid, Mia. You're a guest. I'm a charity case, she said, but there was no bitterness in her voice, just truth. You're someone who needed help. There's a difference. Mia looked at him, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then she smiled, small and sad, but real. Thank you, she said. Daniel nodded and turned away before she could see the way his throat tightened. But it was Lily who really changed things. Lily, who hadn't smiled in months, who'd barely spoken to anyone outside of school, latched onto Mia with a fierceness that startled them both. She followed Mia around the house, asking questions, dragging her into games, insisting she read bedtime stories. Why do you like reading to her? Daniel asked one night, finding Mia in Lily's room, a chapter book open on her lap. Because she listens, Mia said simply. Really listens. Like the story matters. It does to her. You matter to her. Mia looked down at Lily, already asleep, her small hand curled around Mr. Fluff. I don't know why. Because you see her. Most people don't. Mia's eyes shimmered. I'm not used to being seen either. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. What was your life like? Before? Mia closed the book, her fingers tracing the cover. Controlled. Every minute of every day. Adrian's family had a plan for me, and I was expected to follow it. Wake up at 6, exercise for an hour. Breakfast with Adrian's mother, she'd critique everything, my posture, my conversation, the way I held my fork. Then charity work or social events, whatever made the family look good. Evenings were for Adrian, dinners with his colleagues, fundraisers, always performing, always perfect. That sounds exhausting. It was suffocating. Mia's voice cracked. I forgot who I was. Or maybe I never knew. They took me in when I had nothing, and I felt like I owed them everything. My life. My choices. Me. You don't owe anyone yourself. Mia looked at him, tears spilling over. I'm starting to believe that. Daniel reached out, hesitated, then gently squeezed her shoulder. Good. On the 4th day, everything changed. Daniel was at work, stacking pallets in the warehouse, when his phone rang. An unknown number. He ignored it. It rang again and again. On the 4th call, he answered, irritated. Yeah? Daniel Brooks? The voice was smooth, controlled, male. Who's asking? My name is Adrian Wolfe. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Daniel's blood ran cold. He stepped away from his coworkers, moving toward the loading dock. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play games with me, Mr. Brooks. Mia Carter, she's staying with you, isn't she? Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. How did you... I know everything about you, Daniel. Where you work, where you live, your daughter's school schedule, the fact that you're 3 months behind on your mortgage. So let's not waste time with pretense. I want Mia back, tonight. She's not a possession. Adrian's laugh was low, dangerous. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Mia is confused. She's had a difficult week, but she'll come to her senses. And when she does, you'll be nothing but a footnote. She doesn't want to see you. That's not your decision to make. The warmth drained from Adrian's voice, leaving something cold and sharp. I'll be at your house at 7 o'clock. Have her ready. If you make this difficult, there will be consequences. For you, for your daughter. Do you understand? Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of reality. 7 o'clock, Mr. Brooks? Don't make me wait. The line went dead. Daniel stood there, heart pounding, the phone still pressed to his ear. Around him, the warehouse continued its rhythm. Forklifts beeping, pallets clattering, men shouting. But all he could hear was the echo of Adrian's voice. Your daughter's school schedule. He left work early. When he got home, Mia was in the kitchen with Lily, helping her with homework. They looked up when he came in, and Mia's smile faded immediately. What's wrong? Daniel set his keys down, his hands shaking. We need to talk. Lily looked between them, her face pale. Is someone coming? Lily, go to your room. Dad, now. The sharpness in his voice made Lily flinch. She grabbed her books and fled upstairs. Daniel heard her door slam, and guilt twisted in his gut, but there wasn't time for that now. Adrian called, he said. The color drained from Mia's face. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. How did he find me? I don't know, but he knows you're here. He's coming tonight, 7 o'clock. No. Mia's voice was barely a whisper. No. Mia, who is he? Really? He's... Her voice broke. He's dangerous, Daniel. You don't understand. He's not just some jilted fiancé. He's connected, powerful. He owns half the city. Politicians, judges, police, they all owe him something. If he wants something, he gets it. Always. And he wants you. He thinks he owns me. Mia's hands were shaking. I've been his project since I was 16. The orphan he saved. The girl he molded into the perfect wife. Walking away wasn't just rejecting a marriage. It was rejecting everything he built me to be. Daniel's jaw tightened. What did he say on the phone? What do you mean? He threatened you? Mia laughed, but it was a broken sound. Adrian doesn't threaten directly. He makes things happen. People lose jobs. Businesses fail. Accidents occur. He doesn't get his hands dirty, but the results are the same. He mentioned Lily. Mia's face crumpled. Oh God, Daniel, I'm so sorry. I should never have stayed. I've put you both in danger. Stop. Daniel stepped closer, his voice firm. This isn't your fault. He's the one making threats, not you. But I brought this to your door. You needed help. I chose to give it. That's on me. Mia looked at him, tears streaming down her face. You don't know what he's capable of. Then tell me. She took a shaky breath. There was a girl, a few years ago. One of Adrian's business rivals had a daughter, college student, sweet kid. She started asking questions about some of Adrian's deals, questions that made people uncomfortable. A week later, she got arrested for drug possession, cocaine in her car. She swore it wasn't hers, but there were cameras, witnesses, everything. She got 2 years. Jesus, that's what he does. He doesn't hurt people directly. He destroys them legally, systematically, in ways they can't fight. And if you stand between him and what he wants... Mia's voice trailed off. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What do you want to do? What? You have a choice here. I can drive you somewhere, bus station, airport, wherever. You can disappear again, or you can stay, and we'll face him together. But it's your choice. Mia stared at him. You'd actually let him come here, after what I just told you? If that's what it takes to keep you safe, yeah. Why? The word came out as a sob. Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know? Daniel thought about Sarah, about the day the doctor said there was nothing more they could do, about holding his wife's hand while she slipped away, feeling utterly helpless, about the promise he'd made to himself in that hospital room, that if he ever had the chance to help someone, really help them, he wouldn't look away. Because someone has to, he said. And because Lily's watching. She's watching how I handle this, what I choose to do. And I want her to see that sometimes doing the right thing means standing up even when you're scared. Mia's face was wet with tears. I'm terrified. Me too. But you're going to do it anyway. Yeah, I am. Daniel paused. Are you? For a long moment, Mia didn't answer. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay. I'll stay. They spent the next 2 hours preparing. Daniel called his brother, a lawyer, and explained the situation. His brother wasn't optimistic. You're dealing with Adrian Wolfe? Jesus, Danny, you know who that is? But he agreed to come over, just in case. Mia sat with Lily, trying to explain in terms an 11-year-old could understand. Someone's coming tonight who I used to know. He's not a good person, but your dad and I are going to handle it. I need you to stay upstairs, okay? No matter what you hear. Lily looked at her with those 2 old eyes. Is he going to hurt you? No, I won't let him. Promise? Mia pulled her close. I promise. At 6:30, Daniel's brother arrived. Marcus was older, broader, with the same dark eyes and a permanent scowl. He took one look at Mia and shook his head. You're really doing this? Yeah. You know this guy could ruin you, right? One phone call and your job's gone. Your mortgage gets called, your life gets turned inside out. I know, Marcus sighed. You always were too stubborn for your own good. He turned to Mia. You sure you want to face him? Mia's voice was steady. Yes? All right. When he gets here, let me do the talking. Don't admit to anything. Don't make promises. And if he tries to take you by force, we call the cops immediately. The cops won't help, Mia said quietly. Half of them are on his payroll. Then we'll call the ones who aren't. At 7:05, they heard the car. Daniel moved to the window and watched as a sleek black sedan pulled into his driveway. The engine purred, expensive and quiet, before shutting off. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Adrian Wolfe was everything Daniel had imagined and worse. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit with dark hair styled perfectly and the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, surveying Daniel's modest house with barely concealed disdain. Daniel opened the door before Adrian could knock. "Mr. Brooks." Adrian's smile was cold, calculated. "Thank you for seeing me." "I didn't invite you." "No, but here we are." Adrian's eyes flicked past Daniel into the house. "Is Mia here?" "That's none of your business." "Everything about Mia is my business." Adrian's voice remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. "We're engaged. Or have you forgotten?" "She walked out. That's a pretty clear answer." "She's confused. It's been a difficult week for her. Pre-wedding jitters, family pressure. It's overwhelming. But I'm here to take her home now, where she belongs." "She doesn't want to go with you." Adrian's smile tightened. "Again, Mr. Brooks, that's not your decision to make." "Mia? Darling, I know you're in there. Come out so we can talk." There was a pause. Then Mia appeared in the hallway behind Daniel. She looked small, her arms wrapped around herself, but her voice was clear. "I'm not going with you, Adrian." Adrian's expression shifted, just for a second, a flash of something dark, before the smile returned. "Sweetheart, let's not do this here. Come home, and we'll talk privately." "No." "Mia," I said no. Her voice was stronger now. "I'm not coming back. Not tonight. Not ever." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "I don't think I am. You have no money, no resources, nowhere to go. What are you going to do? Sleep on this man's couch for the rest of your life?" "If that's what it takes." Adrian laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think he can protect you? Look at him, Mia. He's a warehouse worker living paycheck to paycheck in a house that's falling apart. He can't give you anything." "He gave me a choice," Mia said quietly. "That's more than you ever did." The mask slipped. Adrian's face hardened, and when he spoke, his voice was ice. "I gave you everything, a home when you had nothing, an education, a future. And this is how you repay me?" "You gave me a cage. I gave you a life. You gave me your life, not mine." Adrian stared at her, and for a moment the veneer of civility was gone. What remained was something cold and possessive and cruel. "Fine," he said quietly, "if that's how you want it. But understand this, Mia. You walk away from me. You walk away from everything. The trust fund your parents left, that's managed by my family. The apartment you lived in, my property. Every connection you have, every door that was ever open to you, that's because of me. Without me, you're nothing." "Then I'll be nothing." Adrian turned his gaze to Daniel. "And you think you're some kind of hero, don't you? Rescuing the damsel in distress. But you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." Daniel held his ground. "I think I do." "No, you don't." Adrian stepped closer, and his voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I know everything about you, Daniel. Your wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. You've been struggling ever since. 3 months behind on your mortgage. Credit card debt piling up. Your daughter's having behavioral issues at school. You're barely holding it together. And you think you can take on someone like me? Get off my property. I could destroy you with a phone call. One call and your job disappears. Your mortgage gets foreclosed. Your daughter ends up in foster care while you're sleeping in your car. Is that what you want?" Marcus stepped forward. "That's enough. You're threatening my client." "I'm not threatening anyone," Adrian said smoothly. "I'm simply outlining reality. Mr. Brooks needs to understand the consequences of his choices. The only consequence he needs to worry about is calling the police if you don't leave." Adrian smiled. "By all means, call them. Ask for Officer Richardson. Tell him Adrian Wolfe sent you. See how that works out." He turned back to Mia and his voice softened. "Last chance, darling. Come home with me now and we'll forget this ever happened. Your room is waiting. Your life is waiting. All you have to do is walk out that door." Mia met his eyes and Daniel saw something shift in her expression. Fear, yes, but something else too. something harder. No, she said. Adrian's face went blank. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then he nodded slowly. I see. Well, I tried to be reasonable. He straightened his cuffs, his composure returning. Enjoy your freedom, Mia, however long it lasts. He turned and walked back to his car, moving with the same unhurried grace. The engine purred to life, and the sedan glided away into the night. Nobody moved until the taillights disappeared. Then Mia's legs gave out. Daniel caught her as she crumpled, holding her while she shook with silent sobs. Marcus closed the door and locked it, his face grim. This isn't over, he said quietly. I know, Daniel replied. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. Mr. Fluff clutched tight. Is he gone? She whispered. Yeah, Bug. He's gone. Is Mia okay? Daniel looked down at the woman in his arms, still shaking, still crying, but still here. She will be. Lily came down the stairs slowly and wrapped her arms around both of them. The three of them stood there, holding each other in the middle of Daniel's worn-out living room while the night pressed against the windows. Marcus watched them, something shifting in his expression. You know what you're up against? Yeah. And you're doing this anyway? Yeah. Marcus shook his head, but there was something like pride in his eyes. You always were the stubborn one. He grabbed his coat. I'll do some digging. See what I can find out about Wolf's business dealings. Maybe there's something we can use. Thanks, Marcus. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get worse before it gets better. He paused at the door. But for what it's worth, you did the right thing. After he left, Daniel got Mia settled on the couch and sent Lily back to bed. But none of them slept. They couldn't. The house felt different now, smaller, like the walls had drawn in closer. Around midnight, Daniel came downstairs to find Mia sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. Can't sleep? He asked. Every time I close my eyes, I see him standing there, smiling, like he already won. Daniel sat beside her. He didn't win. You stood up to him. For now, but he'll come back. And next time, he won't be polite. Then we'll deal with it. Mia looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed. Why are you doing this? Really? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, When Sarah was dying, I felt helpless, completely powerless. I couldn't save her, couldn't fix it. I just had to watch her slip away. And after she died, I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to help someone, really help them, I wouldn't let fear stop me. He met her eyes. You needed help. And I can give it. That's enough. Mia's face crumpled again, and fresh tears spilled over. I don't deserve this. Yes, you do. You deserve so much more than what he gave you. I'm scared. Me too. But we're going to figure it out. Together. Mia leaned against him, and Daniel put his arm around her. They sat like that for a long time, two broken people holding each other in the dark, while the world outside waited to tear them apart. But for now, in this moment, they were safe. They were together, and that Daniel thought was worth fighting for. The morning after Adrian's visit, Daniel woke to find Lily already downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table with Mia. Neither of them was eating. They were just sitting there, quiet, like survivors of something they couldn't name yet. Morning, Daniel said, his voice rough from too little sleep. Lily looked up at him with those dark, worried eyes. Is he going to come back? Daniel wanted to lie, wanted to tell her everything would be fine, that the man in the expensive suit was just a bad dream. But Lily had already lost too much to believe in easy answers. I don't know, Bug. Maybe. Then what do we do? We keep going. School, work, normal stuff. We don't let him win. Mia hadn't said anything yet. She was staring at her hands, picking at the edge of a napkin until it shredded into pieces. Mia? Daniel pulled out a chair. You okay? I keep thinking about what he said, about how he could destroy you with a phone call. She looked up, her face pale. What if he does it? What if you lose your job because of me? Then I'll find another one. Daniel, you have a daughter, a mortgage. You can't just... I made my choice. I'm not taking it back. Mia's eyes filled with tears. You shouldn't have to choose. But I did, and I'd do it again. Lily reached across the table and took Mia's hand. Dad's stubborn, she said matter-of-factly. Once he decides something, he doesn't change his mind. Mom used to say it was his worst quality. And his best one, Daniel added quietly. Mia squeezed Lily's hand and tried to smile. It didn't quite work, but she tried. After breakfast, Daniel drove Lily to school. She was quiet in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the gray morning. You scared? He asked. A little. Me too. Really? Yeah, but being scared doesn't mean we can't handle it. It just means we have to be careful. Lily turned to look at him. Do you like her? Who, Mia? Yeah. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. She's a good person who needed help, that's all. That's not what I asked. He glanced at her. When had she gotten so perceptive? I don't know her well enough to answer that yet. But you want to know her. Daniel didn't respond. Lily was right, and they both knew it. When they pulled up to the school, Lily grabbed her backpack but didn't get out right away. Dad? Yeah? I'm glad she's staying. I know it's complicated and scary, but I like having her around. The house feels less empty. Daniel's throat tightened. I know what you mean. Lily leaned over and hugged him, quick and fierce, then bolted out of the car before he could say anything else. He watched her disappear into the crowd of kids, and for a moment, he let himself believe everything would be okay. The warehouse was the same as always, loud, busy, smelling of diesel and cardboard. Daniel clocked in and got to work, trying to lose himself in the rhythm of lifting and loading. But his phone kept buzzing in his pocket. Unknown numbers. He ignored them all. At lunch, his supervisor pulled him aside. Brooks, you got a visitor. Daniel's stomach dropped. Who? Didn't say. Suit and tie. Waiting out front. Daniel walked to the front of the warehouse, his heart pounding. But it wasn't Adrian standing there. It was a younger man, maybe 30, with slicked back hair and a briefcase. Mr. Brooks? My name is Trevor Nash. I work for Wolf Enterprises. I don't want to talk to you. I understand, but Mr. Wolf asked me to deliver a message. Trevor opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside, you'll find documentation regarding Miss Carter's trust fund, her outstanding financial obligations, and the legal ramifications of harboring someone who has violated a contractual agreement. She didn't sign anything. Actually, she did. A prenuptial agreement that included specific clauses regarding cohabitation and living arrangements. By residing with you, she's in breach of contract. Mr. Wolf could sue for damages. Let him try. Trevor's smile was thin. Mr. Wolf doesn't want to escalate this. He simply wants Miss Carter to come home. If she does, all of this goes away. If she doesn't, he left the threat hanging. Tell your boss to stay away from my family. I'll pass that along. But Mr. Brooks, a word of advice. Adrian Wolf doesn't lose. Not in business, not in life. You're fighting a battle you can't win. We'll see. Trevor tipped his head and walked away, leaving the envelope on the loading dock. Daniel stared at it for a long time before picking it up and shoving it in his locker. He didn't open it, didn't want to. The rest of the day dragged. Every time Daniel's phone buzzed, he flinched. Every unfamiliar face made him tense. By the time his shift ended, he was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical labor. He came home to find Mia in the kitchen, cooking. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the house, and for a second, Daniel could almost pretend everything was normal. Hey, Mia said, looking up from the stove. I hope you don't mind. I found some pasta and sauce in the pantry. You didn't have to cook. I wanted to. Helps me think. Daniel set his keys down. One of Adrian's guys came to see me today. Mia's hand froze mid-stir. What did he say? Gave me an envelope. Legal stuff. Said you're in breach of some contract. The prenup. Mia's voice was flat. Of course. What's in it? Everything. Where I could live, who I could see, what I could do with my trust fund. Adrian's lawyers made sure I couldn't leave without consequences. Can he actually sue you? Probably, but it's not about the money. It's about control. He wants me to know he's still pulling the strings. Daniel leaned against the counter. So what do we do? I don't know. Mia's eyes were tired. Run? Hide? Wait for him to get bored? He doesn't seem like the type to get bored. No, he's not. They stood there in silence, the pasta bubbling on the stove, neither of them knowing what came next. Lily came home an hour later, dropped her backpack by the door, and immediately went to Mia. "Can we build another fort tonight?" Mia smiled, and it was the first real smile Daniel had seen from her all day. "Yeah, we can do that." While they built the fort, pillows and blankets draped over chairs and the couch, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with the envelope. He finally opened it. Inside were pages of legal documents, all dense text and intimidating letterhead. He couldn't make sense of half of it, but the message was clear. Adrian Wolfe owned every part of Mia's life, and he wasn't letting go without a fight. There was also a photo. Mia, maybe 16 or 17, standing next to an older couple. She looked young, fragile, lost. On the back, someone had written, "We gave her everything." Daniel stared at the photo for a long time. Then he tucked it back in the envelope and shoved the whole thing in a drawer. That night, after Lily went to bed, Mia sat on the couch, staring at nothing. "You should leave," she said quietly. Daniel looked up from his laptop. "What? You should kick me out before this gets worse, before he destroys you." "That's not happening." "Daniel, you saw the papers. He's going to sue me, and when he does, he'll drag you into it. Your finances, your custody of Lily, everything. He'll make it public and humiliating, and you'll lose everything." "So what? I just let him win?" "You protect yourself. And Lily." Daniel closed his laptop and sat beside her. "You think running is going to protect you? He'll find you. You said it yourself, he always gets what he wants. At least you won't be collateral damage." "I'm not collateral. I'm choosing this." Mia turned to him, her eyes wet. "Why?" "I keep asking you that, and you keep giving me these noble answers, but I don't understand. You don't owe me anything." "Oh." Daniel thought about how to explain it. About the nights after Sarah died, when he'd sit in the dark, numb and hollow, wondering if anything mattered anymore. About the way Lily had withdrawn into herself, and how helpless he'd felt watching her disappear. About the guilt that gnawed at him every day, that he hadn't been enough, hadn't done enough, hadn't saved the people who needed him most. "After Sarah died," he said slowly, "I spent a year just going through the motions. Wake up, feed Lily, go to work, come home, repeat. I wasn't living. I was surviving. And then one day, Lily asked me if I was going to be sad forever." His voice cracked. "I didn't know how to answer her, because I was sad, and I didn't see a way out of it." Mia was quiet, listening. "But then you showed up," Daniel continued, "and I saw someone who was fighting, who was scared and broken, but still trying. And I realized I'd stop trying. I'd let grief turn me into someone who just accepted things, who didn't fight back." He looked at her. "Helping you isn't just about you, Mia. It's about proving to myself and to Lily that I can still do something that matters." Mia's face crumpled, and she leaned into him, her shoulders shaking. Daniel wrapped his arms around her and held on. "I'm so tired of being afraid," she whispered. "I know. I don't know how to stop." "You don't have to stop. You just have to keep going anyway." They sat like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet house, while the world outside waited to tear them apart. The next few days passed in uneasy calm. Daniel went to work, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mia stayed at the house, trying to figure out what came next. And Lily moved between them, a small anchor keeping them both grounded. Marcus called on Thursday with an update. "I've been digging into Wolfe's business. The guy's clean on paper, too clean. Everything's documented, accounted for, legally sound. But I talked to a few people, and there are rumors." "What kind of rumors?" "Money laundering, bribery, using shell companies to hide assets. Nothing concrete, but enough smoke to suggest fire. The problem is, no one will go on record. They're all too scared." "So what do we do?" "Keep our heads down and hope he loses interest, or—" Marcus paused. "You could give him what he wants." "Not happening." "Danny, I'm serious. This guy is dangerous. If Mia goes back, she's not going back. End of discussion." Marcus sighed. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Wouldn't be the worst thing." "Don't talk like that. You've got a kid who needs you." "I know. That's why I'm doing this. So she sees what it looks like to stand up. Or she sees what it looks like to lose everything." Daniel didn't have an answer for that. On Friday, Daniel came home to find Mia sitting at the kitchen table with a laptop. She'd been staring at job listings all afternoon, her face set in determination. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Looking for work." I can't keep living off your charity. It's not charity. Then what is it? Daniel pulled out a chair. It's what people do. They help each other. I need to take care of myself, Mia said firmly. I've spent my whole life depending on someone else. Adrian's family. Adrian, I need to learn how to stand on my own. Okay, but you don't have to do it alone. Mia looked at him, something shifting in her expression. I've never had that before. Someone who wanted to help without strings attached. Well, you do now. She reached across the table and took his hand. Thank you. Daniel squeezed her fingers, and for a moment, the weight of everything else faded. That weekend, Mia got her first job interview. It was for a receptionist position at a small accounting firm. Nothing glamorous, but it was a start. She borrowed clothes from a neighbor, practiced her answers with Lily, and tried not to panic. You're going to do great, Daniel told her as she stood by the door, fidgeting with her borrowed blazer. What if they ask about my work history? I've never had a real job. Then you tell them you're ready to learn. What if they Google me? What if they find out about Adrian? Then they're not the right fit. Mia took a shaky breath. I don't know if I can do this. Lily appeared in the hallway, still in her pajamas. You walked out on a wedding in front of 300 people. You can handle a job interview. Mia laughed, surprised. You're right. I know, Lily said with the confidence of an 11-year-old who'd already seen too much. Now go be awesome. Mia went, and an hour later, she came back with red eyes and a trembling smile. I got it, she said. Daniel pulled her into a hug, and Lily cheered. For the first time in weeks, the house felt light. But the light didn't last. On Monday morning, Daniel got to work to find his supervisor waiting for him. Brooks, we need to talk. Daniel's stomach sank. What's wrong? Upper management got a call over the weekend. Some lawyer asking questions about your employment history, your work performance, whether you'd been reliable. What did you tell them? The truth, that you're a good worker. But Danny, the supervisor looked uncomfortable. They're putting pressure on me, asking if we really need you on staff, suggesting we might want to make cuts. I've been here 6 years. I know, and I pushed back. But these guys, they don't make suggestions lightly. He put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. Just watch your back, okay? And maybe think about updating your resume. Daniel worked the rest of the day in a fog. He made mistakes, dropped a pallet, mislabeled a shipment, nearly backed a forklift into a wall. By the time his shift ended, he was shaking with anger and fear. He called Marcus on the drive home. They're coming after my job. Of course they are. That's how Wolf operates. He doesn't punch you in the face. He takes away everything you need to survive. What do I do? Document everything. Keep records. If they fire you, we'll have grounds for wrongful termination. And if that doesn't work, Marcus was quiet for a moment, then you find a new job, and you keep fighting. When Daniel got home, Mia took one look at his face and knew. What happened? He told her, and as he spoke, he watched her expression crumble. This is my fault, she said. No, it's his. I should leave, right now, before he takes everything from you. He's already trying. Leaving won't change that. But, Mia, listen to me. Daniel took her by the shoulders. If you run now, he wins. He proves that he can control you, that all he has to do is threaten the people you care about, and you'll fold. Is that who you want to be? I don't want you to lose everything because of me. Then help me fight back. Mia stared at him, something fierce and fragile warring in her eyes. How? We find leverage, something we can use against him. There's nothing. He's too careful. Everyone has secrets. We just have to find his. That night, they sat at the kitchen table with Marcus on speakerphone, going through everything Mia knew about Adrian's business. Names of associates, properties he owned, deals he'd made. It wasn't much, but it was a start. There was this one thing, Mia said slowly. A few months ago, Adrian had a meeting with a city councilman. I wasn't supposed to hear, but I was in the next room. They were talking about rezoning a waterfront property. The councilman was hesitant, said it would look bad, but Adrian offered to make a substantial donation to his re-election campaign. That's a bribe, Marcus said. Can we prove it? Not without a recording or documentation. But if we can find other instances, build a pattern. It's worth a shot, Daniel said. They worked late into the night, piecing together fragments of information. Mia remembered names, dates, snippets of conversation. Marcus cross-referenced them with public records. And slowly, a picture began to emerge of a man who operated just outside the law, who traded favors and influence like currency. It wasn't enough yet, but it was something. Around midnight, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you all still up?" "Just working on some stuff, Bug. Go back to bed." "Is this about the bad man?" Daniel hesitated. "Yeah." Lily came over and climbed into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it. "Are we going to be okay?" "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we are." "Promise?" Daniel held her tight. "Promise." After Lily went back to bed, Mia stood and walked to the window, staring out at the dark street. "What are you thinking?" Daniel asked. "That I've spent my whole life being afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being alone, afraid of Adrian." She turned to face him. "But for the first time, I'm more afraid of going back than I am of staying." "That's good." "Is it?" "Because it feels terrifying." "Being brave always does." Mia smiled, small and sad. "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what's the point?" She crossed the room and sat beside him. "Thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You didn't have to help me. You could have driven past that night and your life would be so much easier." "Easier doesn't mean better." Mia leaned her head on his shoulder, and Daniel let himself relax for the first time all day. They sat like that, quiet and tired, while the clock ticked toward tomorrow. The next morning, Mia started her new job. She was nervous, fumbling with the phone system and mixing up names, but she pushed through. And when she came home that evening, exhausted but smiling, Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. "How was it?" he asked. "Hard, overwhelming, but good." She collapsed on the couch. "My boss is nice, a little intense, but fair. And the other receptionist showed me how to use the filing system." "See, you can do this. Don't jinx it. It's only day one." But day one turned into day 2, then 3, then a full week. And with each day, Mia grew a little stronger, a little more confident. She opened her first bank account, bought her first phone with her own money, started learning how to navigate the world without someone controlling her every move. Daniel watched her transform, and it stirred something in him he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. But hope was a dangerous thing, because just when they started to believe they might actually make it, Adrian struck again. It was a Wednesday evening. Daniel had just picked Lily up from school when his phone rang. The school principal. "Mr. Brooks, I need to speak with you about an incident today." "What kind of incident?" "Lily got into a fight with another student. She's okay, but we need to discuss disciplinary action." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Lily doesn't fight. What happened?" According to witnesses, another student made a comment about her home situation, and Lily became physical. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for violence." "I'll be right there." When Daniel arrived, Lily was sitting in the principal's office, her face red and tear-streaked. The principal, Mrs. Chen, looked sympathetic but firm. "Lily hit another student," she said, "pushed her to the ground. The other girl wasn't seriously hurt, but this behavior is unacceptable." "What did the other girl say to her?" "That's not relevant." "It is to me," Mrs. Chen sighed. She told Lily that her father was harboring a criminal and that Lily's mother would be ashamed. Daniel's vision went red. "Who told her that?" "I can't disclose." "Who?" Mrs. Chen looked uncomfortable. "The girl's father works in real estate. He mentioned hearing something from a business associate." "Adrian, of course." Daniel turned to Lily. "Go wait in the car." "Dad? Now." After Lily left, Daniel turned back to the principal. "My daughter is being targeted because of something that has nothing to do with her. If you punish her for defending herself, Mr. Brooks, I understand you're upset, but the rules are clear. Lily will be suspended for 3 days. This is insane." "It's policy." Mrs. Chen softened. "I'm sorry. I know this is difficult, but my hands are tied." Daniel drove home in silence, Lily crying in the passenger seat. When they got to the house, Mia was waiting. She took one look at them and went pale. "What happened?" "Lily got suspended because some kid repeated garbage her father heard from Adrian." Mia's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Lily, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault." Lily said fiercely. It's his, and I'd do it again. No, you wouldn't, Daniel said. You don't fight, Lily. That's not who you are. Then who am I supposed to be, the girl who lets people say terrible things and does nothing? You're supposed to be smart. Fighting gives him exactly what he wants. Lily's face twisted. I hate him. I know, Bug. Me too. That night, Daniel lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much more they could take. Every day, Adrian tightened the noose a little more. The job. The school. What came next? Downstairs, he heard movement. He got up and found Mia in the kitchen, pouring herself water with shaking hands. Can't sleep? He asked. Every time I close my eyes, I see Lily's face. She's suffering because of me. She's suffering because Adrian is a manipulative bastard. It's the same thing. Daniel leaned against the counter. Do you want to leave? Mia looked at him, tears streaming down her face. Every minute of every day, but I can't, because if I do, he wins, and I can't let him win. Then we keep fighting. How? He's destroying you piece by piece. Then we destroy him first. Mia's eyes widened. How? I don't know yet, but Marcus is still digging, and if there's dirt to find, he'll find it. And if there isn't? Daniel didn't have an answer, so he just pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. Two broken people trying to hold each other together in a battle they weren't sure they could win, but they were still standing, still fighting, and for now, that had to be enough. The suspension gave Lily 3 days at home, 3 days where she barely spoke and spent most of her time in her room with Mr. Fluff. Daniel called in sick to work, unwilling to leave her alone, unwilling to give Adrian another opening. Mia went to her job at the accounting firm, and every time she left the house, Daniel watched her go with a knot of anxiety in his chest. On the second day of Lily's suspension, Marcus showed up unannounced with a box of files and a grim expression. We need to talk, he said, brushing past Daniel into the kitchen. That bad? Worse. Marcus spread papers across the table. I've been digging into Wolf's connections, and I found something. 3 city council members, 2 judges, and a police captain. All of them received substantial donations from Wolf Enterprises right before making decisions that benefited Adrian's business interests. Daniel leaned over the documents. That's corruption. It's a pattern of behavior. But proving corruption is different from proving a crime. These donations are all technically legal. Campaign contributions, charity fundraisers, nothing explicitly illegal unless we can show quid pro quo, and that's nearly impossible without testimony or recordings. So we're back to nothing. Not nothing. I found one case that might give us leverage. Marcus pulled out a highlighted document. 4 years ago, a small business owner named Robert Chen tried to compete with one of Adrian's development projects. 2 weeks after breaking ground, Chen's building permits were mysteriously revoked. Then he got hit with a string of code violations. His business went bankrupt within 6 months. Let me guess. Adrian bought the property. Through a shell company, yes. But here's the thing. Chen tried to fight it, hired a lawyer, filed complaints with the city, then suddenly he dropped everything and disappeared. I tracked him down. He's living in Oregon now, running a hardware store. You think he'll talk? I think he's terrified. But if we can get him to go on record about what Adrian did to him, and if we can find others like him, we might have enough to interest a prosecutor. Daniel looked at the papers spread across his kitchen table. That's a lot of ifs. It's all we've got. Upstairs, Lily's door opened. She appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. Uncle Marcus? Hey, kiddo, heard you've been having a rough week. Lily came down slowly. Is this about the bad man? Marcus glanced at Daniel, who nodded. Yeah, it is. We're trying to find a way to stop him. Can you? I don't know yet, but we're trying. Lily sat at the table, looking at the papers without really seeing them. The girl at school, the one I pushed, her dad told her that Mia's a gold digger who ran away from her wedding to trick my dad, that she's going to steal our money and leave. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. That's not true. I know, but everyone believes it. Now nobody wants to sit with me at lunch. I'm sorry, Bug. Why does he get to do this? Why does he get to hurt people and nobody stops him? Marcus spoke gently. Because he's rich and powerful, and the system is rigged in his favor. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to fight back. What if fighting back doesn't work? Then at least we tried. That's more than most people do. When Mia came home from work that evening, she found Daniel and Marcus still at the table, Lily curled up on the couch with a book. She set down her purse and immediately knew something had changed. What happened? Daniel told her about Marcus's findings, about Robert Chen, about the possibility of building a case. As he spoke, he watched the color drain from Mia's face. "You want to go after him," she said quietly. "Legally. It's the only way to make him stop." "Daniel, you don't understand what you're asking. Adrian has destroyed people for less. If we come at him and miss, if we can't prove anything, he'll bury all of us. And if we do nothing, he'll bury us anyway, just slower." Mia looked at Marcus. "You really think we have a chance?" "A small one, but it's better than no chance at all." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "There's something I didn't tell you about why I ran." Daniel and Marcus both looked at her. "The week before the wedding, I overheard Adrian on the phone. He was talking to someone about property acquisitions. He mentioned a family who wouldn't sell their building, some old couple who'd owned a bakery for 40 years. Adrian laughed and said they'd change their minds once the health inspector paid them a visit." Her voice shook. 2 days later, that bakery failed its health inspection and got shut down. The couple sold the property to Adrian for half what it was worth. "Did you tell anyone?" "Who would I tell? The police work for him, the lawyers work for him, everyone works for him." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "But I kept notes, dates, names, conversations I overheard. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I wrote everything down." Marcus leaned forward. "Where are these notes now?" "In a storage unit. The one thing I managed to keep from Adrian's control. I paid for it with money from my parents' estate before the trust fund got locked up." "Can you get them?" "I think so, but if Adrian finds out..." "We'll be careful," Daniel said. "When can you go?" "The unit's across town. I could go tomorrow after work." "I'll come with you." "No. If someone's watching, 2 people will draw more attention than 1. I'll go alone." Daniel didn't like it, but he understood. "Okay, but you call me the second you're done." That night, after Marcus left and Lily went to bed, Daniel found Mia standing on the back porch, staring at the dark yard. "You okay?" he asked. "I keep thinking about what happens if this doesn't work. If we expose him and nothing happens, or if we can't find enough evidence, or if everyone's too scared to testify. Then we deal with it." "How?" "He'll never stop, Daniel. Even if we run, even if we move across the country, he'll find us. He doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget." Daniel stepped beside her. "Then we make sure he can't come after us. We hit him hard enough that he's too busy defending himself to attack. And if we can't, we will." Mia turned to look at him. "You sound so sure." "I have to be. For Lily. For you." He paused. "For me." She studied his face in the dim light. "When did you become so brave?" "I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being afraid." "That's the same thing." Daniel shook his head. "Brave is what you did. Walking out of that church, starting over with nothing, that took guts. Or stupidity. No, it took strength, the kind most people don't have." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "That's what strength looks like. It's not about being unbreakable. It's about breaking and choosing to keep going anyway." She leaned into him, and Daniel wrapped his arms around her. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other against the dark. The next day crawled by. Daniel went to work and tried to focus, but his mind was on Mia. Marcus had agreed to tail her from a distance, just in case, but Daniel still felt the weight of worry pressing on his chest. His phone rang at 4:30. "Mia." "I've got them," she said, her voice tight with tension. 2 notebooks full of notes. I'm heading back now. Anyone following you?" "I don't think so. Marcus is behind me, and he hasn't signaled anything." "Good. Come straight home." "I will." But 40 minutes later, when Mia should have been walking through the door, there was still no sign of her. Daniel called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. He called Marcus. "Where is she?" "I don't know. I lost her about 10 minutes ago. She took a turn, and when I followed, she was gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "Her car's not on the street. It's like she just vanished." Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Find her. He grabbed his keys and was halfway to the door when his phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? Daniel Brooks. Adrian's voice was smooth as silk. We need to talk. Where is she? Mia's safe. For now, she's with me. If you hurt her, I haven't laid a hand on her, but we're having a conversation, she and I, about her future, about choices and consequences. Let me talk to her. In a moment. First, you and I need to reach an understanding. Daniel forced himself to breathe. What do you want? What I've always wanted? Mia, home, where she belongs. She doesn't want that. What she wants is irrelevant. What matters is what's best for her. And right now, what's best is for her to stop this nonsense and come back to me. She's not coming back. Adrian's laugh was cold. You really think you can protect her? You, with your minimum wage job and your falling apart house and your troubled daughter? What can you possibly offer her that I can't? A choice. Choice is overrated. I gave Mia everything. Stability, security, a future. You're giving her chaos and poverty. I'm giving her freedom. Freedom to do what? Work a dead-end job? Live paycheck to paycheck? That's not freedom, Daniel. That's desperation. Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. Where is she? She's at her old apartment, the one she lived in before the wedding. I thought it might help her remember what she's giving up. I'm coming to get her. I wouldn't recommend that. The building has excellent security. You won't get past the lobby. Try me. No need for dramatics. I'm going to give Mia a choice, a real one. She can come home with me right now, and all of this unpleasantness ends. Your job, your daughter's reputation, your brother's law practice, everything goes back to normal. Or she can leave with you, and I will systematically destroy every aspect of your life until there's nothing left. That's not a choice. That's a threat. Call it what you want. But Mia understands the stakes now, so I'm going to hang up, and in 1 hour, she'll make her decision. If she chooses you, well, I hope you're prepared for war. The line went dead. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, then grabbed his jacket and ran to the car. He called Marcus on the way. He's got her at her old apartment, some building downtown. I know where it is. I'll meet you there. What about Lily? Call a neighbor. We don't have time. Daniel called Mrs. Patterson from next door, explained there was an emergency, and practically carried Lily over to her house despite her protests. Then he drove. The building was one of those sleek high-rises with a doorman and marble floors, and the kind of rent that would take Daniel's entire paycheck twice over. He parked illegally and strode to the entrance, where a security guard immediately blocked his path. Can I help you? I need to see Mia Carter. Apartment. He realized he didn't know the number. Name's not on the registry. She's here. Adrian Wolfe brought her. The guard's expression didn't change. Mr. Wolfe doesn't take visitors. I'm not visiting. I'm getting someone who doesn't want to be here. Sir, if you don't leave, I'll have to call the police. Call them. I'll wait. The guard reached for his radio, but before he could speak, the elevator dinged. The doors opened and Mia stepped out. She looked small, fragile, her face pale and tear-streaked. But she was walking on her own, her jaw set with determination. Mia. Daniel started toward her, but the guard moved to block him. It's okay, Mia said. He's with me. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Mia walked past him, past Daniel, straight out the door, and into the cold evening air. Daniel followed. Outside, she stopped on the sidewalk, shaking. Daniel reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't, not yet. Are you okay? No, but I'm here. She looked up at the building, and Daniel saw something hard in her eyes. He showed me everything. My old room, the closet full of clothes, the jewelry, the life I walked away from. And he told me I was being selfish, that I was ruining his reputation, embarrassing his family, throwing away everything they'd given me. He said I owed them. You don't owe anyone your life. I know. But he made it sound so reasonable, like I was the crazy one for wanting something different. Her voice cracked. He said if I stayed with you, he'd make sure you lost everything. Your job, your house, custody of Lily. He has lawyers ready to file complaints about your fitness as a parent. He'll claim the environment is unstable, that you're harboring someone with mental health issues. Daniel felt cold rage settle in his chest. He can try. He'll succeed. You know he will. He has the money and the connections to make it happen. So what are you saying? Mia looked at him, and for a terrible moment, he thought she was going to say she was going back. But then she straightened, wiping the tears from her face. I'm saying he's declared war, so we'd better be ready to fight. Relief flooded through Daniel. He pulled her into his arms, and she held on tight, both of them shaking. Marcus pulled up a minute later. He took one look at them and said, We need to move fast. If Adrian's filing complaints, we need to get ahead of it. They went back to Daniel's house. Lily was already there. Mrs. Patterson had driven her home after getting worried. She threw herself at Mia the second they walked in. Are you okay? Dad said the bad man took you. I'm okay, I'm here. He didn't hurt you? No, but he tried to scare me. Mia knelt down to Lily's level. And it worked. I was really scared, but I came back anyway. Because you're brave. Because I had something worth coming back to. They spent that night going through Mia's notebooks. Page after page of dates, names, conversations, transactions. Some of it was damning, clear evidence of bribery, intimidation, fraud. Some of it was circumstantial. But together, it painted a picture of a man who operated above the law because he'd bought the law. This is good, Marcus said, flipping through the pages. Really good. But we need people willing to testify. Without witnesses, this is just hearsay. What about Robert Chen? Daniel asked. I'll try to contact him again, but he was pretty clear last time that he wanted nothing to do with this. Then we find others. There have to be more people Adrian's hurt. There are. But getting them to talk is another story. Mia looked up from the notebook she was reading. What if I testify? Against Adrian? Yes. I have first-hand knowledge of his business practices. I was there for meetings, saw documents, heard conversations. If I go on record, he'll destroy you, Daniel said. You know he will. He's already trying to destroy all of us. At least this way we fight back. Marcus looked thoughtful. If you're willing to testify, and if we can corroborate your testimony with documentation and other witnesses, we might have enough to interest the district attorney. The DA who probably owes Adrian favors, Daniel said skeptically. Not the county DA, the state attorney general. I have a contact there, someone who's been looking for a way to go after corruption in the city. This could be his opening, or it could be a dead end. It's a chance, which is more than we had yesterday. They worked until past midnight, organizing evidence, making lists of potential witnesses, building a timeline of Adrian's questionable dealings. By the time they stopped, Daniel's eyes were burning and his head was pounding. But for the first time in weeks, he felt something like hope. Mia fell asleep on his couch, exhausted. Daniel covered her with a blanket and stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. She looked young like this. Vulnerable. But he'd seen the steel in her eyes tonight, the determination that had brought her back. Marcus packed up his files. You know this is going to get uglier before it gets better. I know. And there's no guarantee it works. Adrian's slippery. He might find a way out of this. At least we'll know we tried. Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. Sarah would be proud of you, standing up like this, protecting someone who needs it. Daniel's throat tightened. Or she'd think I was being reckless, putting Lily at risk for someone I barely know. No, she'd see what I see. Someone who's finally living again instead of just surviving. After Marcus left, Daniel checked on Lily. She was asleep, Mr. Fluff tucked under her arm. He brushed the hair from her face and whispered, I'm sorry, Bug, for all of this. Back downstairs, he found Mia awake, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep? He asked. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that apartment with Adrian telling me how stupid I'm being, how I'm throwing away my future for nothing. You're not throwing it away. You're choosing a different one. Am I, or am I just dragging you and Lily down with me? Daniel sat beside her. You want the truth? Always. A month ago, I was going through the motions. Wake up, take care of Lily, go to work, come home, repeat. I wasn't living. I was just existing. And Lily was doing the same thing, just existing in this house full of grief. He looked at her. You changed that. You brought life back into this place. You gave Lily something to care about besides her own pain. You reminded me that there are still things worth fighting for. But at what cost? Whatever it takes. Because some things are worth the risk. Mia's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. How to be the person you think I am. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. That's enough." She reached for his hand, and they sat there in the quiet, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to hold on. The next morning, Marcus called. "I got through to Robert Chen. He doesn't want to testify, but he's willing to talk off the record. Can you and Mia meet me at his place this weekend?" "We'll be there." The drive to Oregon took 7 hours. They left early Saturday morning, Lily staying with Mrs. Patterson, and drove through rain and gray skies. Mia was quiet most of the way, staring out the window at the passing landscape. "You nervous?" Daniel asked, terrified. "What if he won't help? What if we came all this way for nothing? Then we try something else." Robert Chen lived in a small house on the outskirts of Portland, the kind of place that looked like it had seen better days. He answered the door with suspicion written all over his face. "You the lawyer's brother?" "Yeah, Daniel Brooks. This is Mia Carter." Chen looked at Mia, and something shifted in his expression. "You're the one who ran from Wolf. You heard about that?" "It made the news, at least in certain circles." He stepped aside. "Come in." The house was modest but clean. Chen offered them coffee, then sat across from them with a wary expression. "I don't know what you think I can do for you," he said. "I already told Marcus I'm not testifying." "We're not asking you to," Daniel said. "We just want to understand what happened, how Adrian destroyed your business." Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he started talking. He told them about the development project he'd planned, the permits he'd secured, the loans he'd taken out, about how Adrian had approached him with an offer to buy the property, and how Chen had refused. About the violations that started appearing overnight, faulty wiring that had been fine the day before, structural issues that didn't exist, health hazards that materialized out of thin air. "I tried to fight it," Chen said, "hired a lawyer, filed complaints. But every door I went through led back to someone connected to Wolf." "The building inspector?" "His nephew worked for Wolf Enterprises. The city councilman I appealed to received a $50,000 donation from Wolf the month before. It was rigged from the start." "What made you stop fighting?" Mia asked quietly. Chen's jaw tightened. "My daughter. She was in college at the time, studying to be a teacher. One day she got pulled over for a broken taillight. The cop found a bag of pills in her glove compartment. She swore they weren't hers, but she got arrested anyway. The prosecutor offered a deal: plead guilty, get probation, or go to trial and risk jail time." "Did she take the deal?" "Yeah, because I told her to, because I knew we couldn't win." He looked at them with haunted eyes. "A week after she pled guilty, all my legal troubles disappeared. The violations got cleared, the permits got reinstated, and I got an offer to sell the property for exactly what I'd paid for it." "Adrian sent you a message," Daniel said. "He sent me a very clear message: stop fighting or watch my daughter go to prison." Chen's hands shook. "So I sold, moved out here, started over, and I've been looking over my shoulder ever since." Mia leaned forward. "What if you didn't have to look over your shoulder anymore? What if we could stop him?" "You can't stop Adrian Wolf. People have tried. They all failed. But what if we could? What if we had enough evidence, enough witnesses to actually make charges stick?" Chen laughed bitterly. "You think I'm the first person to have evidence? I had documents, photos, recordings, and none of it mattered because the system is rigged." "The state attorney general isn't rigged," Marcus said. "At least not yet. And he's been looking for a way to go after corruption in the city. If we bring him a solid case, he'll bury it, or someone will bury him. That's how it works." They talked for another hour, but Chen wouldn't budge. He'd been broken by Adrian, and the fear had sunk too deep to shake loose. As they left, he stopped Mia at the door. "You really walked away from him?" he asked. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I realized I'd rather have nothing and be free than have everything and be a prisoner." Chen looked at her for a long moment. "I used to think that too, before I learned what freedom costs." He paused. "But maybe you're braver than I was. I hope so, because if you're going to take him on, you'll need all the bravery you can get." The drive back was quiet. Somewhere around the Oregon-California border, Mia finally spoke. "He's right, you know. Adrian's going to win. He always does. We don't know that." "Yes, we do. We just don't want to admit it." Daniel pulled over at a rest stop. They got out and stood in the parking lot, the wind cold against their faces. "You want to quit?" he asked. "I want to be realistic. We're going up against someone with unlimited resources, unlimited connections, and no conscience. What do we have? Some notebooks and a scared man who won't testify. We have the truth. The truth doesn't matter if nobody listens. Then we make them listen." Mia looked at him, frustration and despair warring in her expression. How? How do we make anyone listen when Adrian controls the narrative? We find someone he doesn't control. We go public. We make enough noise that he can't silence it. And if that doesn't work, then at least we tried. At least we fought back instead of just accepting it. Mia was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I'm scared, Daniel, really scared. Not just for me, for you and Lily, for what happens if we lose. I'm scared too. But I'm more scared of what happens if we don't try." She looked up at him, and in her eyes, he saw the same thing he felt, fear and determination and a desperate kind of hope. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's fight." They got back in the car and drove home, not knowing what came next, but knowing they'd face it together. And somewhere in the dark behind them, the road stretched on, full of uncertainty and danger, and the faint, fragile possibility of something better. They got back to the house just after midnight. Lily was asleep at Mrs. Patterson's, and the house felt hollow without her. Mia went straight to the couch and sat there, staring at nothing, while Daniel made coffee neither of them would drink. "We need a new plan," he said finally. "We need a miracle." Robert Chen was one person. There have to be others. There are. But they're all too scared to talk. You saw it in his eyes. Adrian broke him completely. Even years later, thousands of miles away, he's still terrified. Daniel sat beside her. "Then we find someone who isn't broken yet. Someone who still has enough fight left to stand up." "Like who?" "I don't know. But Marcus has contacts. He can ask around, see if anyone's willing to talk." Mia turned to look at him. "And what do we do in the meantime? Just wait for Adrian to strike again?" "We build our case with what we have. Your notebooks, documentation. We get everything organized so when we find someone willing to testify, we're ready." "That could take months." "Then it takes months." "What if we don't have months? What if Adrian files those complaints about your parenting? What if he gets you fired? What if—" "Mia." Daniel took her hands. "We can't control what Adrian does. We can only control how we respond. So we prepare for the worst and hope for the best." She laughed, but it came out broken. "That's a terrible plan." "It's the only one we've got." The next morning, Daniel picked up Lily from Mrs. Patterson's. She was quiet on the drive home, picking at the hem of her shirt. "You okay, Bug? Mrs. Patterson said you went to Oregon to talk to someone about the bad man." "Yeah, we did." "Did it help?" Daniel wanted to lie, to tell her everything was fine, but Lily deserved better than that. "Not as much as we hoped, but we're still trying." "What if trying isn't enough?" "Then we try harder." Lily looked at him with those old, tired eyes. "I heard Mrs. Patterson on the phone with her daughter. She said you're going to lose your job because of Mia, that you're making a mistake letting her stay." Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. "Mrs. Patterson doesn't know what she's talking about." "But what if she's right? What if we lose the house? What if I have to change schools again?" "That's not going to happen." "You don't know that." "No. But I know I'm not giving up, and I need you to trust me on that." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I do trust you, but I'm scared." "Me too, Bug. Me too." When they got home, Mia was in the kitchen making breakfast. She'd showered and changed, but her eyes were red-rimmed and her hands shook slightly as she flipped pancakes. "Morning," she said, trying to smile. "I thought we could use something normal." Lily went to her and hugged her tight. "I'm glad you came back." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "Me too." They ate breakfast together, the three of them sitting at the small kitchen table, pretending everything was normal, but the weight of what they were facing hung over them like storm clouds. After Lily went upstairs to do homework, Mia turned to Daniel. "I've been thinking, maybe I should leave. We've had this conversation." "I know, but I keep coming back to it. If I disappear, Adrian has no reason to come after you and Lily. He'd focus on finding me, and you'd be safe. And you'd be hunted for the rest of your life. Better me than all of us." Daniel set down his coffee. You really think Adrian would just let me go after everything, after I helped you, hid you, stood up to him? He's not the forgiving type. But without me here, he has no leverage. He has Lily. He has my job. He has 100 ways to hurt me whether you're here or not. The only difference is, if you stay, we fight together. Mia looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. Why do you care so much, really? And don't give me some noble answer about doing the right thing. I need to know. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, when Sarah was dying, she made me promise something. She said, don't let grief turn you into stone. Don't stop feeling just because it hurts. And for 2 years, I broke that promise every single day. I shut down, stopped connecting with people, stopped caring about anything except getting through the day. He looked at Mia, and his voice was rough with emotion. And then you showed up. This woman who was brave enough to walk away from everything, who stood up to a man who terrified her, who fought for her freedom even when it cost her everything. And I realized I'd forgotten what that looked like, what it meant to fight for something. Daniel, I care because you reminded me how to feel again, you and Lily both. You brought life back into this house, and I'm not letting Adrian take that away. Mia's tears spilled over. She crossed the distance between them and kissed him. It was desperate and scared and full of everything they hadn't said. When they pulled apart, both of them were shaking. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. But we're doing this anyway. Yeah, we are. That afternoon, Marcus called with news. I found someone, a woman named Helen Torres. She used to work for one of Adrian's shell companies. Got fired 2 years ago when she started asking questions about the books. Will she talk? She's willing to meet, but she wants assurances that she'll be protected. Can we give her that? Not yet, but I'm working on it. In the meantime, I need you and Mia to meet with her, see what she knows. They met Helen Torres at a coffee shop across town. She was in her 50s with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked at them warily as they sat down. You're the ones going after Adrian Wolfe, she said, not a question. We're trying to, Mia replied. You know he'll destroy you, right? That's what he does. Anyone who gets in his way ends up broken. We're aware of the risks. Helen studied her. You're the runaway bride. I saw your picture in the society pages. That's me. You have guts, I'll give you that. Walking away from someone like Adrian. She sipped her coffee. What do you want to know? What did you see when you worked for him? Marcus asked. Everything. Falsified invoices, money moving through shell companies, payments labeled as consulting fees that were really bribes. I was the bookkeeper, so I saw it all. Did you keep records? Some. But when they fired me, they confiscated my computer, my files, everything. I managed to save a few things on a thumb drive, but it's not much. Would you be willing to testify? Helen laughed bitterly. With what protection? The police won't help. Half of them are on Adrian's payroll. The prosecutors won't touch it because they know it's career suicide. What about the state attorney general? Daniel asked. James Montgomery? He's clean, I'll give him that. But he's also cautious. He won't move without ironclad evidence and multiple witnesses. And getting those witnesses to come forward? She shook her head. Good luck. But if we could get them, Mia pressed, if we could build a case strong enough that Montgomery had to act, would you testify then? Helen looked at her for a long moment. You really think you can pull this off? I think we have to try. Why? What's in it for you? Freedom. For me, for everyone else Adrian's hurt. For the people who are too scared to fight back. Helen's expression softened. You sound like I did 2 years ago, right before I lost everything. What happened? I went to the police with my evidence. They thanked me, said they'd investigate. 2 weeks later, I got fired. A month after that, my bank accounts got frozen. Some issue with the IRS, they said. Then my landlord evicted me for violating the lease. Suddenly, I couldn't get another job. Couldn't get approved for an apartment. My life fell apart piece by piece. I'm sorry, Mia said quietly. I survived, barely. But I learned my lesson. You can't fight people like Adrian Wolfe and win. The system is rigged. Then we change the system. Helen smiled, sad and tired. You're young. You still have hope. That's good. You'll need it. She pulled a thumb drive from her purse and slid it across the table. Here, this is what I managed to save. Financial records from 2020 through 2022. It's not everything, but it might help. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This information has already ruined my life once. I don't know what it'll do to yours. After Helen left, they sat in silence, the thumb drive sitting on the table between them like a live grenade. She's right, Marcus said. This is dangerous. If Adrian finds out we have these files, he's already trying to destroy us, Daniel said. This doesn't change that. It escalates it. Right now, he sees you as an annoyance. Once he knows you have actual evidence, you become a threat. And Adrian eliminates threats. Mia picked up the thumb drive. Then we'd better move fast. They spent the next week going through Helen's files. Late nights at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold, eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets and bank statements. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Money flowing from legitimate businesses into shell companies, then out to offshore accounts. Payments to government officials disguised as charitable donations. Invoices for services that were never rendered. This is fraud, Marcus said. Textbook financial fraud. Can we prove it? Daniel asked. With expert testimony and additional documentation, maybe. But we'd need more. Bank records, testimony from the shell company employees, something concrete tying Adrian directly to the fraud. What about the payments to officials? That's bribery. It is. But proving intent is hard. Adrian's lawyers will argue these were legitimate campaign contributions or charity donations. We need someone willing to testify that there was a quid pro quo arrangement, like a politician who received payments and then made decisions benefiting Adrian. Exactly. But good luck finding one willing to admit that. Daniel leaned back, exhausted. So we're back to needing witnesses. We always were. Evidence helps, but without people willing to go on record, it's just numbers on a page. Mia had been quiet, studying one particular document. Now she looked up. What about this one? It's a payment to Harbor Development, LLC, for consulting services. $200,000. Marcus glanced at it. What about it? Harbor Development is the company Robert Chen was competing with, the one Adrian wanted to buy out. Okay. And this payment is dated 1 week before Chen's building permits got revoked. She pulled out her notebook and flipped through pages. I wrote about this. Adrian had a meeting with the building inspector. They discussed resolving the Chen situation. And a week later, Chen's permits were pulled. Marcus sat up straighter. If we can prove that payment was a bribe to the building inspector, we can tie Adrian directly to corruption, Daniel finished. We need to find the inspector, get him to confirm what the payment was for. Will he talk? Probably not. But it's worth trying. The building inspector's name was Gerald Morrison. He'd retired 6 months ago and moved to a small town outside the city. Marcus tracked him down through public records, and they made the drive on a Saturday. Morrison answered the door in sweatpants and a stained t-shirt, a beer in his hand despite it being 10 in the morning. Yeah? Mr. Morrison? My name is Marcus Brooks. I'm a lawyer investigating corruption in the city building department. Morrison's expression soured. I'm retired. Not my problem anymore. I just have a few questions. I don't answer questions, especially not about things that are none of your business. What about Adrian Wolf? Is he your business? Morrison's face went pale. Get off my property. Mr. Morrison, we have evidence that you received payments from Harbor Development, LLC. We believe those payments were bribes in exchange for revoking building permits for Robert Chen's property. You don't know what you're talking about. Then help us understand. Tell us what really happened. I said get off my property, now. Mia stepped forward. Please, I know you're scared. I know Adrian's dangerous, but people are suffering because of what he's done. If we can stop him, you can't stop him, Morrison spat. Nobody can. I tried once, refused to play along with one of his schemes. You know what happened? My daughter got audited by the IRS. My wife got investigated for Medicare fraud. My life became a nightmare until I agreed to cooperate. We can protect you. No, you can't. Nobody can. Adrian Wolf owns this city. He owns the cops, the judges, the politicians. You think some lawyer and a runaway bride can take him down? He laughed bitterly. You're delusional. So you're just going to let him keep hurting people? I'm going to survive, which is more than you'll do if you keep this up. He slammed the door in their faces. On the drive back, nobody spoke. The weight of failure sat heavy in the car. They'd been counting on Morrison to break, to give them something concrete. But like everyone else, fear had won. "We're running out of options," Marcus said finally. "There has to be someone," Daniel insisted. "Someone Adrian hasn't completely broken." "Maybe. But finding them is like searching for a needle in a haystack, and we're running out of time." That night, Mia couldn't sleep. She stood at the window, staring out at the dark street, waiting for headlights that might belong to Adrian's people. Daniel found her there past midnight. "You should rest." "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see him winning. I see you losing your job, losing Lily, losing everything because of me. That's not going to happen." "You don't know that." "No, but I choose to believe it anyway." Mia turned to face him. "What if we're wrong? What if we can't stop him? What if all of this is for nothing?" "Then at least we tried. At least we stood up instead of lying down." "Is that enough?" "It has to be." She looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw the same exhaustion he felt, the same fear, but also something else, something that looked like determination. "I have an idea," she said quietly. "It's risky, maybe stupid, but it might work." "What is it?" "We go public, not with the Attorney General, not through official channels. We take this directly to the media, find a journalist willing to run the story, put everything out there for the world to see." Daniel considered it. "Adrian will bury it. He has connections to every major news outlet in the city. Not local outlets, not independent journalists. There are people who still care about the truth, who aren't on his payroll. And if they publish it, Adrian will sue them into oblivion. Probably, but at least the information will be out there. People will know what he's done. And maybe, just maybe, that public pressure will force someone to act." Marcus, who'd been listening from the kitchen, spoke up. "It's a long shot, but it's also the only shot we have left." "So we do it," Daniel said. "We find a journalist, we give them everything, and we let the chips fall where they may." The next week, they reached out to everyone they could think of: local newspapers, independent news sites, freelance journalists. Most didn't respond. Some responded with polite refusals. But one, a young reporter named Sarah Kim, who worked for a small investigative news outlet, agreed to meet. They sat in her cramped office surrounded by stacks of papers and the smell of stale coffee. Sarah listened as they laid out their evidence, taking notes, asking sharp questions. "This is big," she said when they finished. "Really big, but it's also dangerous. If I run this story, Adrian Wolfe will come after me, and my publication doesn't have the resources to fight a legal battle." "We understand the risk," Mia said, "but this is the only way we can think of to get the truth out." "Why come to me? Why not a bigger outlet?" "Because the bigger outlets are all connected to Adrian somehow. We need someone independent, someone who can't be bought." Sarah looked at the documents spread across her desk. "I'll need to verify everything, interview sources, build the story properly. It'll take time." "How much time?" "A few weeks, maybe a month." "We might not have that long." "Then we work fast." Sarah met Mia's eyes. "But I need you to understand, once this story breaks, there's no going back. Your life will never be private again. People will dig into your past, question your motives, dissect every decision you've made. Are you ready for that?" Mia thought about the alternative: hiding forever, living in fear, watching Adrian destroy everyone she cared about. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." They spent the next 3 weeks helping Sarah build the story, providing documents, arranging interviews with Helen Torres, giving detailed accounts of everything they'd witnessed. Sarah was thorough, fact-checking everything, pushing back when things didn't add up. Meanwhile, Adrian's pressure continued. Daniel got written up at work for minor infractions. Lily got excluded from a class trip because of concerns about family stability. Their mortgage company called to discuss payment irregularities that didn't actually exist. Every day felt like another small cut, another piece of their lives being chipped away. But they kept going. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Sarah called. "The story's ready. It goes live tomorrow morning." Daniel's heart raced. "Tomorrow?" "Yes. I wanted to give you a heads up. Once this publishes, things are going to get intense. Are you prepared?" He looked at Mia, who nodded. "We're prepared." "Good, because there's no turning back now." That night, none of them slept. They sat together in the living room, Daniel, Mia, and Lily, waiting for the sunrise that would change everything. Around 2 in the morning, Lily spoke. What happens after the story comes out? I don't know, Bug, Daniel admitted, but whatever happens, we face it together. Promise? Promise. Lily curled up between them, and they held her close, 3 people bracing for the storm. The story went live at 6 in the morning. Daniel refreshed the news site on his phone, and there it was. Local developer Adrian Wolf accused of corruption, fraud, and intimidation. Sarah had done her job well. The article laid out everything: the shell companies, the bribes, the intimidation tactics. Helen Torres was quoted anonymously. Robert Chen's story was included. Mia's testimony about what she'd witnessed was featured prominently. By 7, the story had been shared hundreds of times. By 8, other news outlets were picking it up. By 9, it was trending on social media. Adrian's response was swift. His lawyers issued a statement calling the article defamatory lies from a disgruntled ex-fiancé. They threatened legal action against Sarah and her publication. His PR team went into overdrive, flooding social media with counter-narratives and character attacks on Mia. But the damage was done. The information was out there. People were reading it, discussing it, demanding answers. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Daniel felt like they might actually have a chance. That afternoon, Daniel's phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. Hello? Mr. Brooks? This is James Montgomery. I'm the State Attorney General. I'd like to speak with you and Miss Carter about the allegations in this morning's article. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. You want to investigate? I want to hear what you have to say. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Yes. Absolutely. After he hung up, Daniel turned to Mia. The Attorney General wants to meet. Her eyes went wide. He does? Tomorrow. He's taking this seriously. For the first time in weeks, Mia smiled. A real, genuine smile. We did it. We actually got someone to listen. We're not done yet, but it's a start. They held each other, both of them shaking with relief and fear and a hope they'd almost forgotten how to feel. That night, as they prepared for the meeting that could change everything, Daniel looked at the woman who'd stumbled into his life in a torn wedding dress and thought about how far they'd come, how much they'd risked, how much they stood to lose, but also how much they'd already won. Because regardless of what happened next, they'd stood up. They'd fought back. They'd refused to let fear win. And that, Daniel thought, was worth everything. The office of the State Attorney General was everything Daniel had expected: polished wood, leather chairs, framed degrees on the walls. James Montgomery was younger than Daniel had imagined, maybe mid-40s, with graying temples and eyes that looked like they'd seen their share of lies. Thank you for coming, Montgomery said, gesturing for them to sit. Marcus was already there, his briefcase open on the table. I'll get straight to the point. The article that ran yesterday has created quite a stir. My office has been flooded with calls, some demanding an investigation, others insisting the allegations are false. They're not false, Mia said quietly. I'm aware. I've reviewed the documents you provided to the journalist. They're compelling, but compelling isn't the same as prosecutable. Montgomery leaned forward. What I need is witnesses. People willing to testify under oath about what Adrian Wolf did to them. Can you provide that? We're working on it, Marcus said. But most of the people he's hurt are too afraid to come forward. Then we have a problem. Without testimony, without people willing to stand up in court, this is just a collection of documents that his lawyers will shred in about 30 seconds. What about the financial records? Daniel asked. The shell companies, the bribes, that's all documented. And his lawyers will argue it's legitimate business, consulting fees, campaign contributions. Without someone testifying to criminal intent, it's not enough. Mia's hands clenched in her lap. So he wins. Again. Not necessarily. Montgomery pulled out a folder. I've been building my own case against Wolf for 2 years, quietly, carefully. I have investigators looking into his business dealings, his connections to public officials. What you've provided gives me leverage I didn't have before. But I need more time. How much time, Betyon? Daniel asked. 6 months. Maybe a year. We don't have a year. He's destroying us piece by piece right now. Montgomery's expression softened. I understand, but rushing this will only ensure he walks free. Wolf has the best lawyers money can buy. If I bring charges without an airtight case, they'll get it thrown out, and he'll be untouchable. Is that what you want?" The room fell silent. Daniel looked at Mia, saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear that had become their constant companion. "What if we can get you witnesses?" Mia asked. "If we find people willing to testify, would you move faster?" "Absolutely. Get me 3 solid witnesses with first-hand knowledge of criminal activity, and I'll fast-track this." 3 witnesses, Marcus repeated. "In how long?" "Give me 90 days. If you can deliver by then, I'll have enough to move forward." After they left the Attorney General's office, they sat in the car in silence. 90 days. 3 witnesses. It seemed impossible. "Where do we even start?" Mia asked. "We start with everyone Adrian's hurt," Marcus said. "We make a list, we reach out. We don't give up until we find 3 people brave enough to stand up. And if we can't, then we keep fighting anyway." The backlash from the article came fast and brutal. Adrian's PR machine went into overdrive, painting Mia as unstable, vengeful, a liar, looking for attention. They dug up her past. Photos from college, quotes from former classmates, anything that could be twisted to make her look unreliable. Daniel's supervisor called him into the office. "We need to talk about your future here." "Let me guess. Adrian's people have been calling." The supervisor wouldn't meet his eyes. "The company's getting pressure from some of our clients. They're uncomfortable with the negative attention you're bringing." "I haven't done anything wrong." "I know. But corporate doesn't care about right and wrong. They care about optics." He sighed. "I'm sorry, Danny. I fought for you, but they're letting you go." Daniel walked out of the warehouse for the last time with a box of his belongings and a severance check that wouldn't cover 2 months' mortgage. He sat in his truck and called Mia. "I lost my job." Her voice was thick with tears. "I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault." "It is. Everything that's happening is because of me." "No, it's because of Adrian, and we're not letting him win." But driving home, Daniel felt the weight of reality crushing down. No job, bills piling up, a daughter who was being bullied at school because of him, and a fight that seemed more unwinnable by the day. That night, Lily found him sitting in the dark kitchen, staring at bills he couldn't pay. "Dad?" "Yeah, Bug?" "Are we going to be okay?" He wanted to lie, wanted to tell her everything would be fine, but she deserved the truth. "I don't know. We're going through something really hard right now, and I can't promise it'll all work out the way we want." Lily sat beside him. "Do you wish you never helped Mia? That night in the storm?" Daniel looked at his daughter, this brave, broken girl who'd already lost so much. "No, I don't wish that at all. Even though it made everything harder? Even then, because some things are worth fighting for, even when it costs you." "Like Mom?" Daniel's throat tightened. "Yeah, like Mom. I'd give anything to have her back. But I can't. The only thing I can control is what I do now, how I show up, what I stand for." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm glad Mia stayed. Even with everything bad that happened, the house feels less empty with her here." "Me too, Bug." "Do you love her?" The question caught Daniel off guard. He thought about Mia, her courage, her fear, the way she'd brought light back into their dark house. "I don't know, maybe. Is that okay?" "Yeah, I think Mom would want you to be happy." Daniel pulled Lily into his arms and held on tight, this girl who was too young to be so wise. The next morning, they started their search for witnesses. Marcus had compiled a list of 43 people who'd been hurt by Adrian's business practices over the past decade. They divided the list and started making calls. Most hung up immediately. Some listened but refused to help. A few were sympathetic but too scared. They were down to their last few names when Helen Torres called. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you're trying to do, and I want to help." "You do?" "I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of letting him win. If you still need someone to testify, I will." Relief flooded through Mia. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. I might lose my nerve before we get to court." "You won't. I know you won't. 1 down, 2 to go." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A former employee of one of Adrian's shell companies reached out after reading the article. His name was David Park, and he'd been the accountant who'd processed many of the fraudulent transactions. "I kept copies of everything," he told them over the phone. Bank transfers, invoices, email correspondence. I knew something wasn't right, so I documented it, but I never had the guts to do anything with it. Would you testify? Marcus asked. If you can guarantee my family's safety, yes. We'll do everything we can to protect you. 2 down, 1 to go. Days turned into weeks. They contacted everyone on the list, followed leads that went nowhere, faced rejection after rejection. The 90-day deadline was approaching fast, and they still needed one more witness. Then, 3 days before the deadline, Robert Chen called. I saw what you're doing, he said, how hard you're fighting, and I realized something. If I don't help, I'm just as much a part of the problem. You're willing to testify? Yeah, I am. My daughter's graduating from college next month. She's been working with at-risk kids, teaching them that they don't have to accept the cards they're dealt. And I realized, how can I tell her to stand up for what's right when I've been hiding for 4 years? Mia started crying. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. I think I do. Now let's make sure that bastard pays for what he's done. They delivered the news to Montgomery with 2 days to spare. 3 witnesses, documentation, a case that could actually hold up in court. This is good work, Montgomery said, reviewing the materials. Really good. I'll convene a grand jury next month. If they return an indictment, we'll move to trial. How long will that take? Daniel asked. These things move slow. 6 months, maybe more. But with what you've given me, I'm confident we can get a conviction. For the first time in months, Daniel felt hope that wasn't tinged with desperation. But Adrian wasn't done fighting. 2 weeks after they submitted their evidence to the Attorney General, Daniel came home to find his front door open. His stomach dropped. He ran inside, calling for Lily and Mia. They were in the living room, sitting on the couch, pale and shaken. The house had been ransacked, drawers pulled open, papers scattered, cushions slashed. What happened? Someone broke in, Mia said, her voice trembling. We were at the store. When we came back, it was like this. Did they take anything? I don't know. Maybe. It's hard to tell. Daniel called the police, but the responding officer was dismissive. Probably just kids. We'll file a report, but honestly, not much we can do. After the police left, Marcus came over to help them clean up. As they sorted through the mess, Marcus found something tucked under a couch cushion, a business card with Adrian's company logo and a handwritten note. Drop it. He's sending a message, Marcus said grimly. I'm not dropping anything, Mia replied, her voice hard with determination. He wants me scared? Fine. I'm scared, but I'm not backing down. That night, Daniel installed new locks and a security camera. They moved Lily's room to the one with the best exit route. They started sleeping in shifts, one person always awake and watching. It felt like living under siege. But they kept going. The grand jury returned an indictment 3 weeks later. Adrian Wolf was charged with fraud, bribery, money laundering, and intimidation. The news exploded across the city. Some people celebrated, others defended Adrian, calling it a witch hunt. Adrian's lawyers immediately went on the offensive, filing motions to dismiss, attacking the credibility of the witnesses, flooding the media with counter-narratives. The trial was set for 4 months out. Those 4 months were the longest of Daniel's life. He found a new job, warehouse work again, but different company, lower pay. Mia kept working at the accounting firm, saving every penny she could. Lily struggled at school but kept showing up, kept trying. They lived in a strange limbo, waiting for the trial that would decide everything. The night before the trial started, none of them could sleep. They sat together in the living room, the weight of tomorrow pressing down on all of them. What if he wins? Lily asked. Then we pick up and keep going, Daniel said. We don't give up. But what if he comes after us again? Then we fight again, as many times as it takes. Mia took Lily's hand. No matter what happens tomorrow, we're going to be okay. Because we have each other. And that's worth more than anything Adrian can take away. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Daniel, Mia, and Marcus attended every day, sitting in the back of the courtroom, watching as the prosecution laid out their case. Helen Torres testified about the fraudulent accounting practices she'd witnessed. David Park walked the jury through the shell companies and money laundering schemes. Robert Chen described how Adrian had systematically destroyed his business, and Mia took the stand and told her story. About growing up under Adrian's control, about the conversations she'd overheard, about the fear she'd lived with for years. Adrian's lawyers tried to tear her apart. They questioned her motives, her memory, her credibility. But Mia held firm. She didn't waver. She told the truth, even when it hurt. On the final day of testimony, the prosecution played a recording that David Park had secretly made years ago. Adrian discussing a bribe with a city councilman. The audio was damning. Adrian's voice, clear and unmistakable, offering money in exchange for favorable zoning decisions. The defense tried to have it excluded, argued it was inadmissible, but the judge allowed it. When both sides rested, the case went to the jury. The wait was excruciating. 2 days of deliberation. 2 days of Daniel pacing the courthouse halls, Mia wringing her hands, Marcus on his phone checking for updates every 5 minutes. On the afternoon of the second day, the jury came back. They filed into the courtroom, and Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he thought everyone could hear it. Mia gripped his hand, her palm slick with sweat. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor." "How do you find the defendant on the charge of fraud?" "Guilty." Mia let out a sob. Daniel's vision blurred with tears. "How do you find the defendant on the charge of bribery?" "Guilty." "On the charge of money laundering?" "Guilty." "On the charge of witness intimidation?" "Guilty." Adrian's face remained blank, but his lawyers were already conferring, planning appeals. The judge set sentencing for 6 weeks out and remanded Adrian to custody pending sentencing. As the bailiff led Adrian away in handcuffs, he looked back at Mia. For a moment their eyes met, and in his expression she saw something she'd never seen before: defeat. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Daniel shielded Lily, but Mia stepped forward. "I just want to say thank you," she said, her voice shaking. "To everyone who stood up, everyone who testified, everyone who refused to stay silent. This wasn't just about me. It was about all of us, about refusing to let powerful people hurt others without consequences." A reporter called out, "What's next for you?" Mia looked at Daniel and Lily standing behind her, and she smiled. "I'm going home." Sentencing came 6 weeks later. The judge gave Adrian 15 years, citing the scope of his crimes and the harm he'd caused. His lawyers immediately filed appeals, but even with good behavior, Adrian would be in prison for at least a decade. For the first time in months, Daniel could breathe. Life didn't magically get easier after the trial. Daniel's new job still didn't pay enough. The mortgage was still a constant worry. Lily still had nightmares sometimes, but things were different now. Better. Mia got a promotion at the accounting firm. She enrolled in night classes, working toward a degree in business. She got her own apartment, small, but hers, though she spent most nights at Daniel's anyway. Lily started seeing a therapist, working through her grief and trauma. She made a new friend at school, a girl who didn't care about the gossip. She started smiling more. And Daniel learned how to let people in again, how to accept help when he needed it, how to build something new from the wreckage of what he'd lost. 6 months after the trial, on a warm spring evening, Daniel found himself in the backyard with Mia and Lily, attempting to plant a garden. None of them knew what they were doing, and the results were chaotic. Seeds scattered everywhere, dirt on everyone's clothes, Lily insisting the tomatoes should go where the carrots were supposed to be. "This is a disaster," Mia laughed, wiping dirt from her face. "Yeah, but it's our disaster," Lily said, grinning. Daniel looked at them, these two people who'd become his world, and felt something settle in his chest. Not happiness, exactly. That felt too simple, too small. But something like peace, something like hope. "Dad?" Lily asked. "Can Mia stay for dinner?" "She can stay for more than dinner if she wants." Mia looked at him, a question in her eyes. Daniel realized what he just said, the implication behind it. "I mean," he clarified, "if you want to. No pressure. We have room. And Lily's right. The house feels better with you in it." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "Are you asking me to move in?" "Maybe. Is that crazy? We can take it slow if you want." She kissed him, cutting off his rambling. "Yes, I want to." Lily cheered, and they all ended up in a messy group hug, covered in dirt and laughing. That night, after Lily went to bed, Daniel and Mia sat on the back porch watching the stars come out. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," Mia admitted, "for something else to go wrong." "Maybe nothing will." "You really believe that?" "I believe we can handle whatever comes. We've proven that." Mia leaned against him. A year ago, I was standing in a church in a wedding dress, feeling like my life was over. And now? Now I'm sitting on a porch with a man I love and his incredible daughter, covered in garden dirt, and I've never been happier. Daniel turned to look at her. You love me? She smiled. Yeah, I do. Is that okay? More than okay. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you for stopping that night, for taking a chance on a stranger, for not giving up on me when it would have been so much easier to walk away. I didn't do anything special. I just did what anyone should do. But most people don't. That's what makes it special. Daniel thought about that night, the storm, the figure in white, the choice he'd made to pull over. How different his life would be if he'd just kept driving. I'm glad I stopped, he said quietly. Not just for you, for me, for Lily. You brought us back to life. We brought each other back to life, Mia corrected. That's how it works. We save each other. Inside, a light turned on. Lily appeared in the doorway, Mr. Fluff under her arm. Can't sleep? Daniel called. Just wanted to make sure you were still here. We're not going anywhere, Bug. Lily smiled and disappeared back inside. Daniel and Mia stayed on the porch a while longer, watching the stars, planning a future that finally felt possible. They talked about small things, what to plant in the garden, whether to get a dog, where to go on vacation if they could ever afford it. Normal things. Beautiful, ordinary, wonderfully normal things. And somewhere in the conversation, Daniel realized something. He'd spent 2 years after Sarah's death feeling like he was drowning, like every day was a battle just to keep his head above water. But somewhere along the way, he'd learned to swim again. Mia had been part of that, but so had the choice to fight back, the choice to stand up, the choice to believe that some things were worth the risk. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, they all went to the courthouse. Not for a trial this time, for something different. Mia's adoption of her legal independence, finalizing the trust fund from her parents that had been locked up by Adrian's family, getting it released now that he was in prison, taking full control of her own life. It was a small ceremony, just the 3 of them and Marcus. But it meant everything. Afterward, Mia signed the papers and looked up with tears in her eyes. I'm free. Actually, truly free. So what are you going to do with that freedom? Marcus asked. Mia looked at Daniel and Lily. I'm going to use it to build something real, something that matters. A year after the trial, Mia used part of her trust fund to start a nonprofit, a legal aid organization for people being intimidated or exploited by powerful businesses. She hired Marcus to run it. They helped dozens of people in that first year. People like Robert Chen, people who'd been broken by the system and needed someone to fight for them. Daniel went back to school, taking classes in social work. He wanted to help people too, to use what he'd learned from this whole nightmare to make a difference. Lily thrived. She joined the drama club at school, made friends, started talking about college someday. She still missed her mom. They all did. But the grief wasn't as sharp anymore. It had mellowed into something softer, something they could carry. On the anniversary of the night Daniel had picked up Mia in the storm, they drove out to that same stretch of road. It was another winter evening, cold and clear. Why are we here? Lily asked from the back seat. Because this is where it started, Mia said, where everything changed. They stood on the shoulder of the road, looking at the place where a desperate woman had walked alone in the dark and a lonely man had made the choice to stop. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Dad hadn't stopped? Lily asked. All the time, Mia admitted. I'd probably still be trapped, or running, or worse. I think about it too, Daniel said, about how close I came to driving past, how easy it would have been to tell myself it wasn't my problem. But you didn't. No, I didn't. They stood there for a moment, the 3 of them, on that ordinary stretch of road where something extraordinary had begun. Come on, Daniel said finally. Let's go home. They drove back to the house that had become theirs. All of theirs. The one with the leaky roof and the creaky floors and the garden that was still more chaos than organized. The one filled with laughter and life and second chances. That night, they made dinner together. A loud, messy affair with too many cooks and burned garlic bread, and Lily insisting she could flip pancakes for dessert even though she'd never done it before. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely perfect. Later, after Lily was asleep, Daniel and Mia stood in the kitchen washing dishes. "I've been thinking," Mia said, about us, about the future." Daniel's heart sped up. "What about it?" She turned to face him, soapsuds still on her hands. "I know we've been through a lot, and I know we're still figuring things out, but I want you to know I'm in this, all the way, for as long as you'll have me." "How does forever sound?" She laughed, her eyes bright with tears. "Forever sounds pretty good." He kissed her, tasting hope and tomorrow and all the beautiful, messy possibilities ahead of them. Because that's what they'd learned through all of this. That life wasn't about having everything figured out. It wasn't about being perfect or fearless or always knowing the right thing to do. It was about showing up, about making hard choices, about standing up even when you were terrified, about holding on to the people you loved and refusing to let go. It was about stopping for strangers in storms, about taking risks that could cost you everything, about believing that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was simply care. And it was about understanding that you couldn't always control what happened to you, but you could control what you did about it, how you responded, who you chose to be. Daniel had learned that from Mia, and Mia had learned it from Daniel, and together they were teaching it to Lily. That courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was moving forward despite it. That freedom wasn't given. It was taken, claimed, fought for with everything you had. That family wasn't just blood. It was the people who showed up, who stayed, who chose you day after day, even when it was hard. And that sometimes the most ordinary moments, standing in a kitchen washing dishes, planting a chaotic garden, eating burned garlic bread and laughing about it, were actually the most extraordinary ones, because they were real, they were chosen, they were earned. 3 years after that night in the storm, Daniel stood in that same kitchen, now renovated with Mia's help and hard work. Lily was 16, applying to colleges, talking about studying social justice. Mia's nonprofit was expanding to 3 more cities, and Daniel had just been hired as a counselor at a youth center, working with kids who'd been through trauma. They'd built something good from the wreckage, something real. And every night when Daniel locked the doors and checked on Lily and climbed into bed beside Mia, he thought about that choice he'd made, to pull over, to help, to care. The choice that had cost him everything and given him everything. The choice that had taught him the most important lesson of all. That sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. And that's how you build a life worth living. One brave choice at a time. One act of kindness. One moment of refusing to look away when someone needs help. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to show up. You just have to try. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that's enough. It was enough for them. And as Daniel drifted off to sleep that night, Mia's hand in his, Lily safe down the hall, he knew with absolute certainty that he wouldn't change a single thing. Not the fear, not the struggle, not the cost. Because all of it had led him here, home,